This is a pod. A pod about dogs. Healthy dogs. It's the Healthy Dog Pod.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Healthy Dog Pod. It's Ian and Sophie as always, and we've got a very special guest today, Dr. Matt Muir. He's an integrative veterinarian from All Natural Vet Care. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Matt?
Great, thanks Ian. Yeah, as Ian said, I'm an integrative or holistic vet. I work at All Natural Vet Care. I definitely work with a lot more nutritional counseling, herbs, and other modalities as well as conventional medicine. So yeah, mostly focused on trying to get to the root cause of pets' problems, and educating people on how better to care for their pets.
Fantastic. And understand you've got a couple of key things that you practice all the time that we're going to be talking about today.
Yep.
Let's just give us an overview of what it is we're going to be going through.
Yeah, so I really wanted to take the opportunity to, introduce people to the concept of the gut-brain axes, or the gut-brain-skin axes, because I do believe that this is, an emerging area, particularly within the research, but an emerging area where people can really elevate their pet's health by putting more focus on the health of the gut and how that helps, particularly with physical problems, obviously, but more what I wanted to talk about today was the mental problems associated with having problems with the digestive tract.
Yeah. And I think, I've worked with you on a number of cases now, and a lot of what I can see is, while you're obviously very good at reacting to triggers and recognizing symptoms, a lot of your care is preventative care as well, and really trying to make sure that animals in the best possible health to overall gut health, like you say, relating so well to everything else in the body and the mind, and really getting on top of that from an overall perspective. That's something I've always really, really admired, the way you work with that.
Well, yeah, thanks. I guess the main thing with animal health, and particularly trying to empower pet guardians, is that over a lifetime, there are going to be health challenges, mentally and physically, just the same as with humans. So I think it's quite important nowadays to sort of shift our focus a little bit to be thinking about, okay, how can we make our pets more resilient, so that both mentally and physically, so that if there is a little hiccup with their health, that it can actually be not such a big impact on the pet's body, and that they have the immune system to back them up, and reserves in more vitamin B12 that they might need if they're going through a stressful situation, which is certainly what naturopathic medicine in humans is looking at for sure.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's very underestimated in the pet world about gut health and food health and looking after your pet in that way. It's always just give them the kibble and they'll be right, sort of thing. Which you are making people realize that there's so much more to that than just feeding kibble and they're on their way.
Yeah, with regards to the kibble thing, there's certainly an emerging evidence body that suggests that improving the bioavailable nutrients in the body can make a difference. There's studies that talk about the fact that dogs that are fed a inverted commas premium quality diet versus a basic diet, which it normally has increased levels of healthy fats, increased levels of animal protein, that they actually score better on a lot of fearfulness and even aggressive based factors in research. And I think that certainly that echoes what myself, I've been, working before, during and after transition from dogs, from a more highly processed dry or can-based diet, more to a natural feeding diet. And certainly what has been echoed back by pet parents to me is, and certainly to, I guess, other vets in the holistic sphere, is that most people look at their pets and say they're calmer, They seem, and this is obviously, just a gut feeling, mind the pun, that, you know, people sense that their pets are just have a bit more clarity and clearer mind when they're on a more natural diet, and normally that entails more like high biological grade protein. So certainly meat proteins tend to be what seems to help, and also increased omega-3 fats, and usually a lot less carbs. Dogs do have quite a lot of metabolic flexibility, is the technical term, to cope with.
What's that?
Dogs are able to cope with a lot of foods. I mean, you know, they were pretty smart in that, you know, they were the only wild animal, I guess, like when they were wolves, that sort of looked at humans and thought, well, those humans are onto something. If I like stay around this campsite for long enough, or this cave, you know, I'm going to get whatever food they're eating. And so over time they have developed more flexibility in being able to eat what, you know, they're being given. But that's only gone so far, you know, and high carbs is in my opinion the biggest problem with pets. And with that, what I think we see is probably you know, what parents would describe as like a sugar rush in their children. Yeah. With high carb diets.
I think a lot of your clients as well are actually really well educated on what a happy and calm dog looks like. I think there is a big concept out there that hyperarousal is normal in dogs.
Yes.
Because we see it so much, it's been normalized. And when they're sitting down with you and they actually point out these things, my dog's calmer and more settled, that's because as well you've done a really good job, in my opinion, of educating them that this is not normal. This hyperarousal, this isn't energetic, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, it's the sign of the times. I mean, we live in, you know, an information age now, and, you know, recently what we'd find is, you know, people can see the difference with things, particularly with people becoming more, I guess, psycho-educated about their pets' mental health, in the same way that, you know, a lot of families that use our clinic might be told by people at the dog park that their dogs are too skinny, but you know, I keep reinforcing that no, we're actually looking at a population of dogs that are obese, and that isn't normal. It is normal statistically, but it's not optimal, and I think the same now is being sort of seen with regards to, you know, what is really an anxiety crisis for pets, and hyperarousal and reactivity, unfortunately at the moment, is the norm.
Yeah, and then we see it all the time working with our job, and I think the more vets and can actually look into this as well and actually be aware of it, and look at this. I think this topic today of the relationship between the gut and the brain axis is a really big step in the right direction. Give us a bit more information as to how it actually you know, impacts it then. So what sort of things can we do, and what sort of improvements can we see?
Well, you know, first I'd like to say that there is definitely more research that's needed in this field, but with the preliminary, you know, evidence that's emerging, I mean, there's a few sort of quite well-established things. For example, omega-3, particularly the essential fatty acid DHA, which most commonly is found in marine oils like fish oil. It's recognised to have an impact on behaviour in multiple ways. One, and the reason, you know, that I use omega-3 supplementation beyond the sort of accepted minimum requirements for a complete and balanced diet, is that it increases, well, firstly, it protects the brain cells from damage. It is what we call cytoprotective. And that damage, you know, one of the things that damages the brain of a pet is stress, and hyperarousal and thinking too much is actually toxic to brain cells. Fortunately, with the, again, newly emerging concept of neuroplasticity, you know, the brain cells are able to repair and grow and relearn how to function. And so the other great thing about fish oil is that it does allow the learning process. Like, there's studies that both for elderly dogs with cognitive decline and with puppies, that increasing their omega-3 actually can improve their learning process, and particularly with behavioral modification. Obviously, what we're trying to achieve is for dogs to and all pets to learn how to better cope with their environment through behavioral modification. Unlike most other fats, is actually protective to the pancreas when dosed correctly and building up to the right dose. So, the main adage with vets with behavioral problems tends to be ruling out physical problems before labeling it a mental health disorder. And I think that area is really what I want to talk about, is that I don't think it's so clear cut to, it's definitely not clear cut. I mean, the research is showing this. There's a new study from 2019 that actually showed that in a population of dogs that had increased aggression scores had lower microbiome or gut bacteria population diversity. So dogs with really basic gut microbiomes, not enough bacteria, are more aggressive. So, it's starting to be linked. And with that, what I think is, if I'd encourage other vets and pet guardians to go beyond they've been checked and there's no obvious physical problems, or they have physical problems but they're not related to behavior, like the dog's got IBD or IBS-like syndrome, or canine atopic dermatitis, but yet that's all isolated from the anxiety that the dog has. I'd encourage
even just saying that sentence out loud. Oh yeah, it's got physical problems, but it's not related to behavior. We just laughed. We didn't mean to.
Yeah, I know.
But like, it just, of course, it is.
Yes, yes. But the problem with medicine is that yes, I mean, it is, but there's also the problem of subjective bias and the fact that, more science is often needed to really be sure about this. And, that takes time and it takes energy for people to actually conduct this research. But yeah, absolutely. I think that to me, it's a no-brainer. It probably resonates with a lot of the listeners that, they're linked. And the great thing is that there's more research that's proving this now. And so what I'd say, getting back, I've been on a tangent, getting back to fish oil, fish oil, I don't care if I'm wrong in, thinking that, all right, maybe there isn't mild hip dysplasia or myofascial pain in the back that's causing increased arousal or contributing to the stress levels of the dog. Just put them on fish oil, and it's osteoarthritic. It helps with, it's anti-inflammatory. So if I've got it wrong and I've cleared a pet of having a medical health problem, I would still assume that my diagnostic skills as a human being have at their limits, and why not think, all right, well, it clearly has behavioral problems. Once we've ruled out that it's not problem behaviors and that it's behavioral problems, why not use fish oil, for example? There's plenty of other options that might work better in the individual pet, but why not use something that, whilst it's going to protect the brain from the current stress while we try and alleviate that and re-educate the pet that it's okay, that their life's okay, and they're safe, that we use something that might help stabilize the gut and have some anti-arthritic or anti-inflammatory potential.
It's win-win. There's literally no drawbacks.
No.
And and that the side effects of that are all building on just the overall health of the dog. It really is just, okay, so say the gut is influencing the stress levels of the dog, say the pain is influencing the stress levels of the dog, that sort of thing, without actually being too invasive at all in a negative way, is brought around nothing but positives. And even if
it's pretty do no harm with regards to like the Hippocratic Oath, I guess, fish oil, unless they get mild gastrointestinal upset from it, which is manageable. It's a manageable risk when it comes to looking at a risk benefit.
You can build the tolerance up gradually. And
So with fish oil, do you have like a powder that you recommend, or like sardines, or like salmon, or like what do you recommend sort of feeding?
That's a massive topic in its own right with regards to which fish oil we recommend. Certainly, fish oil is a recommendation for now, based on risk benefit. we talk in terms of looking at, other sources of polyunsaturated fatty acids, particularly DHA. Marine oils tend to be the best. At the moment, I'm looking at doing a bit more research into the use of calamari oil. It's more sustainable and probably at less risk of heavy metal and pollution-based toxic buildup in fish oil. Fish oil is a difficult one to navigate, but there's certainly good PCP, dioxin, mercury-free tested fish oil on the market. There are some concerns about the fish oils becoming rancid and not being great for the body if they're not stored and used correctly. But yeah, there's plenty of ones on the market. There's veterinary ones and then human ones to choose from. Krill oil is also used, and then some of the plant-based oils have a place, I guess, but it's certainly an area that's best looked at with generally having a vet on board to help navigate that process.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I know that Django, my little boy, he's improved heaps. Like just with obviously, I mean, it's more than one factor.
There's always more than one factor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always
That's
about
so important
perfect balance.
too.
Yeah, that's the thing with particularly with holistic medicine and just health in general. Like there's you have to find keys to multiple locks, like the right keys to multiple locks. And I sort of liken it to cooking or also some like I often think about it like DJing, where this is the perfect mix.
I'm a DJ. So really, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like transitioning two tracks together, like that's just
It's
like
hard.
little changes and little changes and checking what's working. Getting the feedback. I think it's really similar, particularly in say like a diet transition. That's I think of it like successfully mixing two tracks together.
That's so good. I love
you have
that.
to do little changes here and there. And check that it's working, and then go for it and build on the strengths of what you're doing with medicine.
Yeah, that's a really cool way
I
of looking
love
at it.
that. Yeah, because it's really hard. I'm telling you right now, it's actually difficult.
Oh, I can't do it. I know that
Yeah,
much.
Ian's tried and no,
Failed
it didn't
miserably.
work.
Small audience. So I'd love to learn more about how the diet impacts the gut and that relationship between the gut and the brain.
Sure. So we've talked about fish oil. Another part of and I touched on the fact that new studies are showing that a inappropriate diversity of population of the gut bacteria can have effects mentally. Obviously, the brain's like well established. We won't talk about the fact that the brain's established to have something to do with emotion. But I guess what is starting to filter through to veterinary medicine, but certainly been around for a little bit in human medicine, is gut-associated psychology and the smart guts kind of movement and mood food and eating for to improve mood. And where this really has this interplay is the fact that there's actually brain tissue within the gut in humans, and I think it is the same in dogs.
The look on mine and Sophie's face
I know.
right now.
I'm just like, what?
So there's actually brain tissue, and I think Dr. Michael Mosey, who did the 5-2 diet and smart guts, he talks a lot about this concept. Is the brain gets a lot of neurotransmitter and hormonal communication from the gut bacteria. So the gut microbiome, which is huge, like it's so proportionally is huge compared to the amount of cells in our body, are constantly talking to our brain and sending signals. And one of the big signals is serotonin, and other neurotransmitters that are being helped to be manufactured in the gut by gut bacteria. Gut bacteria also produce a lot of B vitamin, vitamin K, and help digest food to produce different essential fatty acids or volatile acids. A lot of gases that help the body function. So what we're seeing is that emotion is coming from the gut. And if we, rewind a little bit and look at, and this is something that we find with traditional medicine, is when you start looking at things like old wives' tales and language, hot-headedness, gut feelings, things like this. It's actually, there's clues in our language about this stuff. So we're just kind of going full circle and now starting to piece together the puzzle with like biomedical science. In Chinese medicine, anxiety is seen as a liver disturbance. And we must remember that the liver is part of the digestive tract, and the liver's job, is to clear breakdown products and toxins in the body. And if the body's not doing that, then the body can get a drunk-like syndrome that could manifest as stress and anxiety and behavioural problems. So these links are getting stronger.
This is fascinating because this is obviously something that we as trainers trying, like as trainers and behaviorists, like it's training for sit and stay, and then there's so much of what we do is trying to alter the emotional state of the animal. And this is why I've believed for a long time that we can only help so much. The vet can help a hell of a lot, and management helps a hell of a lot. So there's three factors at play there, and we have to work as a team. This is why if I will often refer to a vet and go, hey, look, I need you to actually see it as more than just a naughty dog. Like it's not being naughty. Every single thing that this dog is displaying is a symptom of something. And whether that is, a behavior that is learnt or whether it's something that's going on in the body is so much more to consider than the dog being bloody naughty. Like people's perception around that seems to be wide off the mark. And, me and you have had many conversations about the whole dominance thing, and I'm not going to go into it today, but I feel like this is why I love these conversations, because it opens up people's perception and just lets them actually go, oh, shit, there's actually heaps going on in the background. It's not just him being a brat.
I think because they can't talk to us either. I think that's the most difficult thing too. People overlook it.
Yeah, but that they can talk to us though.
They
just talk a different language.
In a different,
But yes, I agree. But digestive function, if that's not working properly, they can definitely talk to us.
Absolutely.
And you can see signs of that for sure.
Oh yeah, like the amount of times where I've sat down in a client's house and its digestive function is definitely chatting to me because I can smell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Flatulence, for example, is not really normal.
No.
It's a sign that the gut needs work. Like the big signs that the guts need work is like generally if a dog's doing more than 2 bowel motions per day. We'll just talk a bit about dog bowel motions and then we'll move on.
No, we need to.
We'll just do that all in 1 minute and then move on. If they're doing multiple stools per day, more than 2 bowel motions per day on average, it normally is a sign that they're not digesting their food properly. The diet's not working for them. If a pet has had a bunch of ear infections, has skin disease, has had anal gland sacculitis, has had pancreatitis, has had seizures even, and that this is a new concept as well, but I also think that seizures and anxiety I think are also linked in the brain. There's more research there. That's just a hypothesis that I'm throwing out there, that the diet needs some attention, in my opinion. Flatulence, vomiting, there's a study, it's not about dogs, but there's a study in cats that vomit more than once every 3 months, including fur balls. If a cat brings up a fur ball more frequently than every 3 months, 96% of them will have signs of IBS or irritable bowel syndrome on biopsy, so like definitively diagnosed IBS. And that's pretty, people kind of accept that, but that's normal for cats to bring up fur balls. It's not. They shouldn't. They maybe if they're long fur, maybe once every 6 months or more like a year. So in pets, again, when we go back to like what's normal, we're looking at a population of pets that probably gone a bit off strain what the average pet guardian is feeding their pets. Yeah.
I think, I mean, we've already said it, but I think a lot of us have actually so used to seeing stressed out pets that we've normalized it. And and you know, it's not it can be so much better, and owning a pet is not a cheap thing to do.
No.
And if we actually start to look at this as on the whole, it improves the quality of life for the animal, it improves the quality of life for the pet guardian, and everybody wins by actually looking at the health. People probably don't even do it enough for themselves. But,
Yeah. I mean, comparing to how people look after themselves, and this is something that with the whole, you know, put your oxygen mask on first thing, and you know, even last year for November when we talked about, you know, the mental health of a caregiver, you know, which we have to focus on that in our professions, and certainly pet guardians, particularly when there's so much. You know, that whole Instagram mentality of how, like, the perfection that a dog has to have, or that someone has to have based on what they read on the internet. And so I think that's a huge area. Another interesting area that I'm looking forward to sort of seeing research come, and this research will come because this area, like microbiome, like last week was World Microbiome Day, so a big shout out to that. You know, this might blow your mind, but it's probably dogs and humans in the same household probably start sharing and exchanging the microbiomes, and they probably start having the microbiomes of each other. And you know, we know that with children, you know, having a dog in the household reduces risk of asthma. That probably, in my humble opinion, may have something to do with the microbiome. You know, the microbiome, you know, it's such a driver of health way beyond just emotional. You know, cancers, you know, emerging as something that can happen with a microbiome that's producing a lot of stress hormones in the body, and inflammatory mediators, and you know, certainly the whole emerging kind of peanut allergy, and the back of all the food allergies, sensitivities and intolerances that have emerged, which is another thing that needs to be looked at with and particularly with the gut-brain skin axis. That's another thing that needs to be looked at with dogs that have behavioural problems. Like if they've had a history of knowing that a food, you know, that if there's one food that doesn't agree with them, and people sort of sense that, there's likely to be others, and it needs some more thought generally.
Yeah, it's not likely that it's only allergic to chicken, and that is all.
Yeah, and so with
always
that,
the one, isn't it?
like, well, interestingly, I think that's changing. You know, there's it's changing with what people are feeding their pets, but where I was going with that is, you know, symbiotic or probiotic therapy for the treatment or desensitization of kids with bad, like, intense allergies. Probiotics, particularly in Sydney, is with some of the research institutes here, is quite world leading in the use of prebiotic fibers and probiotics and other manipulation of the gut microbiome for improved response to exposure to allergens.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've said to me a number of times how difficult it is to treat skin conditions in the pets. And if we can start, you know, I'm sure this definitely affects you more than me, but that sort of thing, if that sort of research comes out to improve those things on allergens, and again, that's a massive thing to improve the quality of life for our pets. Because I mean, this is just a theory of mine, but I mean, so many of our pet dogs that we've got are not bred in this continent, and they come from Europe and America and, you know, and Asia, and I just in Australia I do see so many more skin problems than I did back in England. Is there a relationship between dogs and the fauna and everything in this country? Is it impacting?
Potential. I think that the other other factor that might cloud that. And usually things are multifactorial. I've learned the longer I've been a vet, I've learned the less that we actually know. So I'm always like, this is definitely a grey area. No, I think that particularly with us living in Sydney, it's a little bit more tropical than the UK, if you've noticed.
That's why you're here,
I was
right?
going to say it's definitely warm here.
And so, no, I think there's multiple factors. I think that unfortunately our pets are slightly allergic to Sydney. Just with the weather conditions, like the humidity, and the fact that, one of the great things about this city is that we live it with so much amazing green space, but there are some pretty noxious plants that dogs react to in Sydney. So, it's an amazing hypothesis that, does the gut microbiome of, where the species is make a difference? Probably. I mean, there's research. Well, I don't know how high level the research is, but, there's hypotheses and speculation that different mineral ratios in the body from different countries affect how countries behave on a global platform. Wow. Like, if a country's got more magnesium in their food chain, they may not want to go to war as quickly. Like it's pretty big level stuff. So the microbiome is, and certainly a lot of the, like I said, the work in Sydney, the research that's done is based on looking at populations of the Bushmen in Botswana, or maybe Namibia, but there's a lot of research in southern and eastern Africa with regards to how the ancient microbiomes improve health. And so, we do see that different populations of people carry different microbiomes, and I think it's, from what we've talked about, I think that it would definitely be a contributing factor that needs to have some mindfulness about its place.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's such a, if we can start to really look at that as the way we feed our dogs can affect them on so many different levels. It's just I've said it a few times, but it just improves the quality of life. And
the win-win from it. I mean, I think that rewinding a little bit when you talked about the expense of having a pet and budgeting for that, I'm a massive advocate of pet insurance. Just like other insurances that people have, the hope is that you never need to use the insurance. But pet insurance is one of the most used insurance people have, and certainly. With my background, actually was in emergency medicine. Well, originally, so when I finished uni, I did a year-long research project and dissertation into, you wouldn't believe, the microbiome of pets and the microbiome of animals and how it affects their health. But I didn't really go into emotional health at that stage. It was more physical. But then, I did quite a lot of emergency work and had to deal with some pretty traumatic experiences for pet guardians at 2:00 in the morning and over weekends. And what I realized is, when we talk about both cost and financial cost and emotional cost and avoiding drama, upstream preventative medicine, and I think that we'd struggle to find people that won't support the place of nutrition being the foundation of health. I mean, that's someone really wants to argue that there's no scientific evidence for that, which often there's a difference between scientific evidence and people's gut feeling or sense. Is that I think nutrition's important, and with nutrition, we need to feed them anyway. Why I've moved to integrative medicine and wellness medicine was I was sick of seeing the same dramas, night after night in emergency. I worked in a big emergency hospital in London, and I did emergency work in regional Australia before I moved to Sydney. There's a lot of problems that I think, and also with livestock. I wish that I could talk to someone about the health of their animal, particularly their nutrition, at 10:00 in the morning in a consult room that they've been booked in to discuss the future health risks of their pet. The fact that there's no osteoarthritic strategy and the dog's 3 and a large breed dog. There's nothing in place. I wish that I could talk to people. Well, I wish I could talk to people before they got their pet. Ideally, I'd like to do nutritional counseling about, the nutrition of the mother of a pet, which is problematic because I support rescues, because we also know that in the scientific literature that the amount of omega-3 DHA that the mother's had during her pregnancy will affect the mental health of the puppy, and also that a mother that's not fed a completely processed diet during her pregnancy and lactation, those puppies will have an increased lifetime risk of canine atopic dermatitis. And this was studied in West Highland Terriers, which are a high predilecting breed for atopy, which is the main skin itch problem that we see. That the nutrition of the mother affects the puppy's lifetime risk of that. I'd say that the microbiome again has something to do with that.
Yeah, of course. And I think the big thing there is looking at it proactively, preventative care.
Yeah.
I've always said this, that nobody calls us when it's going well, but I wish they would.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I love about puppy school and early intervention, and with at an adolescent check for a puppy, behavioural screening, and that's something that we try and achieve, particularly in our practice.
Yeah.
And because we try and be very fear-free in our practice, and we have ample opportunities early on to identify these puppies really reactive, want to try and do like a blood test on a young dog, and if that doesn't work, then I'd say that's a early sign. And I think it's important that at the end of a puppy school session that people go to the facilitator and say, with all love and respect, can you please tell me if my pet has needs some more work.
We actually teach puppy school in Matt's hospital, and what we've learned over the long time doing puppy school now is we can pick it really early. Yeah. We can see it so early, and it's a difficult time because people are so excited to get their puppy. They're thinking is, this is going to be amazing, this is going to be the best thing in my life, and it's a difficult conversation to have, to sit them down and go, hey, just so you know, we're picking this up. We can't guarantee anything, but we just want to give you some preventative care advice around whatever we see, whether it's hypervigilance, whether it's unsettled, whether it's a health issue with the skin. It is a difficult conversation to have with these individuals, but at the same time, if we don't, we're not doing our jobs very well.
Yeah, and I think puppy school is very overlooked. People just go, oh, puppy school, I don't need it. The dogs just play, blah, blah, blah.
Come in, teach them how to sit, let them run around. Yeah,
it's so much more than that. And I think always the first session, everyone leaves going, okay, I did not expect that's what puppy school was going to be like, but I'm happy. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It's not just about play.
They sit down and they, like you say, they expect the dogs to play, and then all of a sudden we engage them instead of their dogs, and you can see the look on their face. They did not see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, we have a responsibility to educate people. Like it's a big part of changing how animal management happens, and how we can genuinely really establish pets as family members, and deliver the appropriate healthcare, both mental well-being and physical health, and obviously the links that we've talked about. To me, it's just an area that is a no-brainer. It saves a lot of drama, saves a lot of time and money later down the track.
It really does.
Definitely.
It really does.
And probably more time and emotional costs than the money itself, really. I think that's the big thing that I see, is that, no one really wanted to get a problem pet.
No. You got a dog to make themselves and their dog happy. And that first few months, for ongoing, of course, but those initial stages is really about getting to know the individual you've just brought into your life.
Yeah.
And listening to them, listening to their body, listening to how they're responding, and an education around it. And that's what we try and do at our puppy school, and you try and do in your practice. And it's really just trying to give them the tools to be able to listen to their dog, so that people can then help.
Yeah.
And take that on. And
can we just talk about your practice? Because I've actually sat in on one of your consultations, and I just want you to go through the process about how someone books in, because I find it really interesting. When I came into your practice, there's no metal table in the middle of the room. It's kind of like a couch, and you sit down and the dog has some toys, and I really like the way that it's the consults done like that.
Yeah, I mean, so the process generally is, it's normally a second opinion. We definitely, the earlier the better. I ideally would like to see a family before they get a pet, so we can talk, and we do offer pre-selection consultation. So that's the best thing. So I'd encourage anyone that's thinking about getting a pet. I'm sure like you guys feel the same. That if you could talk to people about decision making around the best pet for their lifestyle, that's awesome. But generally, what we do. We see mostly second opinions. There's a lot of groundwork that we do before we even meet. We like to read through, and this is again where I see like patterns. It's really clear when I sit down and I read through medical records from the problem that gets presented to me, and someone might book in and want a holistic approach to their pet's anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, or a holistic approach to separation anxiety. So what I have the opportunity, and it's really amazing that I have this opportunity, is that I sit down and I request all the medical records. If people are like, oh, look, it's just actually about the anxiety, that we didn't really have many other health problems that the other vets are, I'd be like, okay, fine, that's fine. But I actually want to see that because I want to see if I can go back through. And so normally I get, the reason that people are coming, and then I read back all the way to the time that they adopted the pet. It's interesting reading. I've seen, but I see a lot of patterns, a lot of pattern recognition, and it's all about, normally gut, brain, skin is the main pattern that happens all the time. So we read, review, start thinking about our approach, our consultations, like we deliver, like we allocate an extended consultation. For multiple reasons. Because once we start talking and start delving deep into particularly the root cause of pets' problems, factor in, whether or not we have to change the diet. 99% of the time we have to do some dietary modifications. Talk about what people's comfort levels are with different modalities: acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, Western herbalism, physical therapy. Discuss the fact that, okay, you're here for anxiety, but those teeth need addressing because that dog is going to be stressed with that smell in its mouth, and its immune system is going to be fatigued. So we sit down and we really unpack what has happened to that point. Meanwhile, the talking process, I sometimes don't even touch the pet for the first 45 minutes. They're asleep.
Yep.
They're asleep on our, magnetic beds, or, playing with the toys. And, we have, a lot of different kind of enrichment and calming aids that we use. We use a lot of like aromatherapy in the rooms, the beds. We don't do the metal table thing. We try and do fear-free medicine. Often I tap out of a consult and say, actually, I'm not doing any more with the pet today. I'm like definitely not giving that pet an injection today because, I can if you want me to, but I don't want your pet to become vet phobic right now, because that will be counterproductive to its coming. If a pet's scared of the vets and they need a vet at those times when they have those health hiccups across their lifetime, we want resilience. We don't want a pet being scared somewhere where it needs to heal, or have help with healing. So then we sort of go through everything. It's often a lot to take in. More and more I need to remind people to bring notepads and paper. And then what we do is we, assess the pet holistically, and with that I mean, like, we do a conventional clinical exam, think about what diagnostic tests might need to be done in a conventional sense, and then we do some Eastern medicine diagnosis, which is a tongue and pulse diagnosis, which is pertinent to making decisions about Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture. And then with that, normally what we do is we actually go away, reflect. Sometimes I'll talk to someone for an hour, might spill over into an hour and a half, and I might actually at the end say, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you in a week. And then what we try and do is, take all the information that we got from the family, hear what the family wants with regards to like what modalities they're comfortable with, what commitments to coming back to our practice they're comfortable with, how much, what the healthcare team is going to look like for their pet. A local GP practitioner, us offering a layer of holistic medicine on top. Do I need to refer to a particular conventional specialist for a particular problem to get more opinions? So we, go through all of that, and then we come up with an integrative care plan, which is a document that really, I look at it for anyone that's, businessly minded, like it's the business plan for the pet's life. It's a working document, a care plan that we edit and keep working with over the pet's lifetime. And we put that on paper because from studies show that people can't remember much, and we shouldn't. With organizational psychology, we should, use the tools at our disposal, and great technology is, pen and paper. But yeah, normally we email across an integrative care plan with lots of links. People can do as much homework as they want. The internet is amazing. Like, I use the internet every day. Obviously, I mean, pretty much everyone that's listening to this would, I'm sure.
You're listening to it on the internet.
There's definitely, you can definitely get misguided on the internet, but the reality is there's great information on the internet. Just need to give people a helping hand. So that's what a consult, that's what it takes. I love it. I wouldn't practice any other way now. But they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's great because, a lot of work is, fulfilling and rewarding. But it can be difficult to do that for every pet. And I certainly can't see every pet in Australia or, every pet around the world. So that's why everything that we're educating people in our practice and coming up with recommendations that meet that individual pet for that individual lifestyle, we need to do awareness and education around that. And particularly with upstream preventative medicine and discussing topics like, nutrition, preventative mental health. Here are two big ticket items that mean that there's more room and more energy that can be dedicated to pets that haven't been so fortunate to have such a great start. And that's why, there's only so many pets a vet can handle in a year. It's professional time basis. It's using a vet and all the other allied health professionals, which includes trainers, behaviorists, and even groomers. To help. Like, it's really a teams-based approach. And because we've got finite time, we really need to be more strategic with how we use our time.
That's right. Yeah. And that's where I love this trying to reach a wider audience thing comes in, because the more people that are even aware of this sort of, I do feel that a lot of people won't have even considered this before hearing this today. And this is where hopefully just if we impact a few people, and I'm sure it'll be more than a few, but through this podcast and this getting guests like Matt in, then we really are hopefully making a real difference to pet ownership.
I think it doesn't take a lot to make a difference, and pet guardianship generally, and generally deep down, most people are animal lovers. It's pretty hard not to.
Yeah.
Maybe people have, and certainly Sir David Attenborough talks a lot about this, about people that have lost touch with nature. And I think like natural management of pets is a great way to really reconnect with the natural world, for sure, particularly in an urban environment. And when we look at, how we can make a difference, people who are animal lovers can be advocates for change in healthcare to a wider audience. Some of the social media groups that I've watched on the internet that are driven by pet guardians are amazing wealths of knowledge. They're often a bit misguided and may not really appreciate the fact that, of statistically significant population sizes to make comments. Like if something worked for one dog doesn't mean it's going to work for every dog. And so it can be a bit clouded and misguided, but we live in the age where we need like social media 2.0, where we need to actually say, all right, we can all have a conversation. We can rapidly peer share good information. We can, help each other navigate misguided information, and this means that by sharing information and screening information and being open-minded and being a little skeptical, which even me as an integrative vet, I'm skeptical of a lot of natural therapies. I'm skeptical of. I have to be.
Yeah.
But we can. Change is happening. Like the social media, was probably initially very focused on oneself, but like from a sense of community and making change, like we can change it. It's changing.
Absolutely.
Nutrition. Pet nutrition is a hot topic on social media.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's not that people aren't talking about it. It's about just going, okay, all right, we're talking about it. What are we going to talk about next? Like, what's next? Where's, what do we need to do?
Yeah. Where do the details lie in this? So, yeah. It's really good.
I also understand that you have a pet food company called Leica.
Yeah. So I've co-founded Leica Pet Food. I did this because, like I said, there's only so much I can do as a vet hospital.
Like I said.
Lyka to everyone.
Yes. So, yeah, I needed to, I've been a vet for nearly a decade. There is only so many people that I can see in a week. And
I need to clone you.
Yeah, well, the artificial intelligence, we're being cloned. So what I really needed to do was, work with passionate people who see the need for things. And Anna, who I've co-founded Leica with, Leica is born out of her own dog called Leica and her need to find the right food for her. And, from that it's grown. So yeah, Leica's a natural feeding diet regime. It's made in a commercial kitchen, a human grade kitchen, and it meets the guidelines for good health from Gregor Olgivi, who did a lot of research in anti-cancer diets. It doesn't have that claim that it is anti-cancer, but certainly we make a food that is free from a bunch of things and full of a bunch of things. So the diets are higher protein, high omega-3 fats, a lot of antioxidant rich foods, a lot of bioactive, or what people might term superfoods, and free from high glycemic index carbs. That's a big one. We don't want dogs having these high carb diets because it does translate to sugar in the liver and bloodstream of a dog. We think that it affects mood, but more importantly than what we think about carbs affecting mood, there's studies from the University of Helsinki in Finland that look at the levels of pro-inflammatory markers in the body of dogs that are fed highly processed diets versus dogs that are fed natural diets, and they're less inflamed. And bringing down inflammation is a good thing in the body. Sensitizing the body to insulin is a good thing. And we know that high glycemic index carbs, just like they do in humans, are driving dysfunction of the circulation in the body and through insulin resistance and high blood sugar spikes after eating. So we've put together a range, but then on top of that, we're actually not only making decisions about what we're feeding dogs based on their weight, but we're actually using technology, using algorithms to develop personalized recipes for pets for what they need based on their health challenges and their lifestyle and their risk factors for health challenges. So Leica's made for the pet. It's delivered as a frozen food. It's slightly cooked, some ingredients are raw, and it's complete and balanced to FEDIAF, which is the European standards for pet food. It's really important, and this is something that I think is important that when we talk about things like fish oil earlier on, the whole complete and balanced criteria for pet food is just a launching platform for health. It's the bare minimums that they need, and they're bare minimums on industrial levels, and may not take into account the optimal nutrient requirements for pets. It's just the bare minimums. So, what we're trying to achieve is using foods and avoiding the use of synthetic vitamins and minerals and refined minerals. We're using whole food, nutrient-dense foods. And this is really reflecting and is born out of what myself and my colleagues do in our holistic practice or integrative practice, and other integrative vets do on a daily basis, is, look at the pet, look at what they need, and replicate a lot of the good things that are happening in processed foods. Like, don't get me wrong, like some of the leading players in the pet food industry have created amazing research, like that Gregor Olgivi, who did the research for the Hills ND food, which is the anti-cancer Hills diet, that research is nearly 10 years old, that says that, low carbs has a place for treating dogs with cancer. That research is not really widely known, but so if a vet's saying that, oh, your dog's got malignant cancer and diet doesn't matter now, that's outdated information. Shout out to all the vets out there on that point, that we're now faced with an exponential growth of scientific literature on the internet. You cannot stay on top of everything. There's going to be some key research that gets through the goalposts. So people need to remember that vets are humans, and we're not robots, and that we can't stay on top of everything. What we can do is problem solve. That's what we learned. That's the main thing that we learned at university, was to problem solve, and using literature databases is part of that problem solving. So with Leica, Leica was one way that I've been able to say, okay, this is my experience, this is what I've learned, this is probably what I'm going to say to you if you come and visit me, but I need to extend that to a wider population, because I can't see 1 million dogs in my practice.
It's a great way of reaching a massive population of animals and pet owners.
Yeah, and integrating brain power into products and into systems is super important.
Absolutely. And understand you've got and on top of all of that, on top of all natural vet care, on top of everything you're doing in terms of your own study, and Leica, you've got a range of other products as well.
Yep. So
machine.
Busy man.
Yeah. Look, it's a flow state thing. Like, I'm in my flow when I'm trying to solve these problems, and I figure the energy that I'm putting in now is just my contribution to my industry and my contribution to the health of the planet, I would say, because it can tie in. But what I'm looking at doing is working with some key partners and actually developing a system of products, herbal medicine products and nutraceutical products that aim to address a lot of health concerns using a lot of the regular herbs and supplements and strategies that we use in clinic, and really helping give other vets and people who are looking for solutions to problems that can be quite tricky to manage, particularly problems that are tricky to manage without the use of drugs with big side effect profiles, and using information alongside products, and actually delivering a system that other vets can use and navigate with summaries of the science that we use. So developed 10 products, just trying to get that organized to get onto the market. But they're 10 products that treat a bunch of health problems based on emerging clinical evidence. We need more research, and I'm trying to get funding from some research institutes to start doing some clinical trials. And then a couple of products that are actually health protective, using herb supplements that are often limited in diets, and supplements that can, take nutrition above and beyond, and people can elect to put, add those to pets' diet to prevent more risk problems if it's deemed necessary. So yeah, that's a big project, and again, it's using technology and AI and systems that that can really help make decisions that I make in clinic, and that the holistic practitioners and herbalists before me, right through to traditional times, have been saying and using, but actually present it in a way that gets mainstream support from the the veterinary community and the animal health community to do this. And in India, which I'm quite interested in, India they have a ministry for Ayurvedic herbal medicine in the government, like it's a cabinet.
Wow.
And they've got this huge strategy for 2033 up until that year, and they're highly motivated to take herbal medicine around the world and to actually have a universal healthcare system for India. So multiple billion person country. They have they recognize that herbal medicine has a place. Like 80% of the world use herbal medicine. Like it's the World Health Organization has a whole strategy on using traditional medicine. Chinese herbal medicine won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015 for an anti-malarial effect. It's really an untapped resource. And so when we look at that, herbal medicine has a place for both animals and people, not peoples.
Lots of people.
Heaps of peoples. And with that, what we need to do, like more research. Dogs have been demonstrated to be great models for research, for human research, particularly with cancer care. And what that means is that the products that I'm trying to get to market, I'm looking at getting funding from Indian businesses and even the Indian government, is elevating the status of key herbs that are used traditionally, and a lot of herbalists, both veterinary and human, would think that these are no-brainers and people are using them. There's emerging evidence. There's like a lot of clinical evidence for certain natural products. Coriolis mushrooms for canine hemangiosarcoma is a big one that's come out recently. It allows us to use these products for pets and benefit pets, but the great kind of side win is that treating pets real time and collecting clinical data to support their use, which is easily facilitated via the internet, means that we can actually build on the research for human health and human disease.
Wow.
And the other thing is that herbal medicine is, those plants are putting oxygen into the environment. Like, it can be part of reforestation. It can be part of like food forests, and, it can help solve environmental problems in the world.
It goes down real deep and a huge level, which is absolutely fascinating. And I can't wait for. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years now, and it's been brilliant from the moment I've met you, working alongside you, and learning so much from you as well. And I can't wait to see.
And you.
Oh, thank you. These products that you've got coming out, I can't actually wait. I mean, I know they've been you put a lot of time and a lot of energy into
7
them.
years.
Just a little while. And lastly, the last thing I'm going to bring up is another amazing thing you do is Planet Decent. Just give us a very quick. We are definitely going to have to wrap it up pretty soon, but it'd be great to just learn. If more people are aware of Planet Decent, then that'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Planet Decent, my other major passion in veterinary medicine is conservation medicine. I'm actually starting a master's in animal conservation medicine next year.
I wasn't busy enough.
I know.
I feel lazy now.
I do actually sleep, but I do drink quite a bit of coffee, which I need to watch. And Planet Decent is a conservation think tank. It's really designed to be about raising a conversation for how people can really get involved with animal conservation. The main thing that I'm doing at the moment is trying to set up a social responsibility vehicle for vets, and it'll be piloted in All Natural Vet Care, where people can donate with a tap and go system and maybe some other systems for supporting pets' wild cousins. Our ambassador species are the clouded leopard in Southeast Asia, and the African wild dog in Africa, obviously. And what we want to do is actually start saying, all right, shout out to the animal lovers. You're looking after your pet. That's awesome. If you can spare some money, or you can spare some time to discuss with other people, your dog's first cousin, the African wild dog, is critically endangered. Your cat's cousin, the most ancient cat that's still around on the planet, the clouded leopard, which had a huge range. Its range is under threat. The other great thing about the clouded leopard is that it shares the same territory as both the Sumatran and Bengal tigers. So if we focus on actually, and also clouded leopards are hunted for their pelts. If we can focus on the African wild dog and the clouded leopard, because they're huge ranging species and they're predators, and they're really good indicators for the health, right down to the dung beetles and the grass in these environments. So focusing on that, and that's definitely what the plan is with my product range, is that the proceeds and also the key farmers and producers for the herbs will be based on micro empowerment projects where they're growing herbs to give them an income in areas where they're living next to protected areas, particularly tigers, clouded leopards, African wild dogs. Wow, so it all ties in. I do work in concept maps and flowcharts and things, so I have a concept map.
I remember the first day that I met Matt. We sat down for a coffee, and it ended up being, I think it was about 6 hours.
Yeah,
it was 6 hours. We ended up.
Yeah, I remember I spoke to you, and you were like, "Yeah, we just finished up." And I was like, "What?"
It was so cool. We sat down for a coffee, and we ended up back in his apartment, going through these amazing thick folders of information, and I was just like, I need this man in my life. Yeah, it's like I said, I've said it already, but it is so good to work alongside you, and the passion that you have for the planet. I mean, you have so many specific passions, but overall you have a love of this planet, and it's just brilliant to be involved, and I'm so bloody happy to have you in here today.
Yeah, same.
Oh, it's been awesome. Thanks so much for giving me a platform and an opportunity to talk about this. It's really awesome that you guys have put this together.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it'd be fantastic to have you back in the future, because I mean, as much as we've gone into so many things today, but I know what goes on in your mind. I don't know what goes on in your mind, but I know that we've probably scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So it'd be fantastic to have you in the future as well.
I'd love to be back.
Yay, awesome.
So that probably wraps us up for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We will be putting links up with everything that we've talked about today, probably some more as well.
Yeah, my brain is, I'm about to explode.
So please email in your questions. Please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, guys, a healthy dog's a happy dog.
Woo!
That's right.
And that was the pod. The Healthy Dog Pod.